Trucker Dump for February 16th, 2015, episode 105. 4 reasons truckers don't have butts.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Well, hello! Hey, everyone. Okay, I have no idea what... I guess that was my inner Miss Doubtfire, I guess. I don't know where that came from. It just popped in my head, so there you have it. How's it going out there? I hope y'all have had a dandy time since the last time we met. Which is actually not 6 months this time. Woohoo! It's actually only, month and a half? Well, it's not great, but hey, it's better than normal, I guess. At least par for the course. So hey, I wanted to start out a little differently this time. I actually have been getting a lot of new listeners. It seems like a lot of them are coming from the trucking podcast over there, so I thank Don and Buck over there for whatever they're saying. I've actually gone over there and listened to that podcast now. I used to listen to his other stuff, but he quit doing that for a while. And he's doing this one called the Trucking Podcast now. I think I mentioned it last week. But I went over there, checked it out. It's pretty cool. You truckers might want to check it out. It's not just a bunch of trucking stuff. What they do is they take news stories and stuff like that, and then they'll try to relate them to the trucking industry. So, for instance, if they've got a neat article they found on health or staying fit or something like that, they're not just going through the points and, saying you need to, cut out sodas. They'll kind of relate some of this stuff as to how hard that is for truckers and things like that. So it's kind of a neat podcast, and it's different from this. They've got 2 guys they can just sit around and kind of shoot the poop. They joke a lot about not even having any show prep when they're supposed to, but they often don't, and yet they still manage to pop out an hour worth of talk. So it's a father-son combo over there that they've got a great rapport, and I think you just ought to check it out. But since I have been getting some new listeners, I thought I better kind of touch up on what the Trucker Dump podcast is if you're new here. What I do is each week... Oh, wow. I listen to way too many podcasts. I hear people say, each week I don't do anything each week. As you might have just found out, usually it's like a month or month and a half, something like that, between my podcasts. I try to make it 3 weeks, but it never, ever, ever happens that way. So, I do the best I can. Hey, I'm an over-the-road driver. I don't have the luxury like Buck and Dawn. They have local jobs, and they're able to just get together every week in their garage or shed or whatever they record in, and then they just record. I don't have that luxury. I've got to try to find quiet. I've got to have time to write a blog post, and that actually brings me to the point of what the Trucker Dump podcast is. Start out, I'm just on here, I write a blog post and something I'm just interested in or something I've got to get off, I just want to get off my mind. Usually it's about trucking. Every once in a while it's not. Usually it's something about relationships or something like that. I talk about the Evil Overlord, who is my wife and ex-codriver, quite a bit, and some stories, some of the funny stuff she's done over the years and how she loves to torment our entire family. But most of the time, probably 90% of the time, it's trucking related. And I just get on here, I read the blog post. For those, a lot of people just don't like to read. They've got more time to drive and, they're in commute or whatever, and they've just got more time to listen than they actually do to go read something. So you can either go to the website, which is abouttruckdriving.com, or actually truckerdump.com works too. But you can go there. You can read the blog post, or you can actually listen to the podcast version on there. There are a lot of people who just read my article, and that's fine. But I prefer the podcast form because I like to use my voice fluctuations to really get across what I'm saying. I think it comes off better than trying to make that into text. It's hard to sometimes relate the way I talk, which may or may not be a good thing. But like I was saying, the thing they don't know that they're missing, or not, is each week, there I go again, each week. No, each episode, there we go, episode, yeah, that's it. I read the blog post, but I also do an intro where I talk about, I just have different announcements and stuff, things I just have on my mind that aren't related to the blog post. I find that I like this. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I always find the one that I'm most engaged with and the ones I like the most are the ones where the people open themselves up some and they talk about their personal lives, and you kind of feel like you kind of know them even though you don't. I mean, nobody knows me out here. I've met very few of the people that I've met online have I actually met in person. But it kind of makes you feel more comfortable with someone if you know a little bit about their personal life. So I like to do stuff like that and just make it fun in the intro. Then I read the blog post, and then when I'm done with that, I go in, and another fun part we have is the feedback section, where all the stuff that you guys have written right now, I get a decent amount of stuff, and I'm a little behind, but it's not so much, I'm not flooded with people commenting on blog posts or, just have something to say themselves. I'm not getting so much of that I can't read everything yet. Maybe one day it'll get to that point where I kind of have to pick and choose some of the good stuff. But right now, if you write in or you leave an audio comment or something like that, it's probably going to make it on the show, unless it's, full of profanity or something like that. We don't want that. I want to keep my clean tag, guys. But I do mention audio comments because you can do an audio comment. One really easy way to do them is just on your phone. Pretty much every phone has a voice recorder app on it. Just tap on it, record what you got to say, write out a little script if you need to, or a little outline, just, so you don't lose track and you're not rambling like I'm doing now. But no, just record into your phone, and usually there's a way to share it right from there, so you could just ship it off to truckerdump@gmail.com. That'd be the best way to do it. So anyway, all you new people, I appreciate you, and I hope you stick around. Just don't expect a show every week. I know that's cool when that happens, but that ain't going to happen here. If you want to know when a new podcast is out, just subscribe to it, and it will show up in your podcasting app, whatever that is, or in iTunes, or you can also listen on Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio. I think they got ways to subscribe over there so you're notified when a new episode comes up. So, anyway, okay, let's see. So now let's get to those announcements I was talking about. I believe last week I may have jumped the gun a bit. I didn't think I was, but I guess I am. I mentioned a CD giveaway. I was going to give away a couple of CDs by a guy, a trucker. Well, no, he's not a trucker. He does trucking music, and his dad was a trucker. His name is Erich McMann. You've probably seen some of his stuff floating around on the YouTubes and on Twitter and stuff. He's got a video out. It's kind of rockabilly, country-ish, but it's all trucking music. It's all trucking lyrics and stuff, and I usually don't like that stuff very much, but I listen to this, and it's pretty catchy. It kind of reminded me of Dwight Yoakam, and I really dig Dwight. So he's going to be giving a couple of CDs away. He's getting the final artwork done and everything, and he shipped it off to the what do they call them? CD reproducer guys. So the CDs are being produced right now, and hopefully by the next podcast, we'll be able to play a little bit of that music, give you a little bit of sample of it, and we'll hopefully give a couple of CDs away. That'd be pretty cool. If you're interested in this kind of music, just Google Erich McMann. Now that's spelled a little differently. It's E-R-I-C-H, and his last name is M-C-M-A-N-N, which is darn close to mine. But he can't say 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. So nanny, Eric. Also on the last podcast, I mentioned a website called BigTruckGuide.com. Now, I like this website. It's really cool. A guy named Paul does it. I tried to pronounce his last name last time and butchered it so bad that I'm not going to attempt it again. But this is a really cool little site for truckers who... Well, it has to do with truck weights and just truck information in general, like weights and different laws in different states and stuff like that. I find it useful. I put a little link on my phone. Just, if I'm just not sure where my axles are supposed to be legal in, say, Nebraska or Wisconsin or whatever, I'm just, I'm not always able to keep that stuff straight in my head, so just one tap and I can look it up real quick. And it's a free service. But here's the thing. I just got an email from Paul after I talked about it last week. There I go again. Last episode. He didn't even realize I had mentioned it, but he wrote in to give me a free membership to his new paid site. I was like, crap. Right after I went and told everybody to go over there because it's such a cool site, now he's going to charge for it. Well, hang on. Don't panic. No. What I found out was that he's offering a premium service for shippers and government agencies and stuff like that who might need to know, maybe what size of a truck they need to ship certain stuff and different laws that they're going to encounter, that they might not be a big shipper and they really don't know that much about it. They have to look this stuff up. There's a premium service that's like $5 a month, and then there's a more expensive one for $30 a month for big companies. But I was so happy to hear that for the average trucker, this regular information, just looking up what your axle, kingpin to axle length is per state and axle weights and stuff like that, that is all still free. So, made me really happy because I would have really missed that resource. I have a piece of paper somewhere in this truck that tells me a lot of that stuff, but every time before I knew about this website, every single time I'd have to go rummaging through everything, and I never could. It took me forever to find the stinking thing, So now I just got a couple little taps on my phone that makes me a very happy camper. So thanks again, Paul, for keeping that free for us truckers. We appreciate it. Okay, now you're going to have to forgive me if this sounds a little bit different. This is the joy of recording a podcast in the cab of your truck. I'm at a different location, so it's probably going to sound a little bit different. I just completely forgot to mention this website I was going to tell you about, and so I just decided to redo the whole rest of this segment. So, what is this website? Well, Anton reached out to me about a website called loadingspot.com. Run over there and check that out. What that is it's a really cool idea. It's a massive project. It takes some cojones to tackle a project like this. But what his goal is to get every shipper and receiver into a database and have information about them. And what he wants is for truckers to, he puts a lot of the information in, automatically. He puts addresses and, like Walmart, all the different Walmarts and stuff. He's got a lot of those. He's got a massive database already in there. But what he's asking drivers to do is sign on to loadingspot.com. You can make an account. It's really easy to do. I've done it. He's got Android and iPhone apps, so it makes it really, really easy to do. And then there's a website also you can go to on your computer if you want to. But what he's asking us to do, how many times have I said that? Like 5 times? Okay. What he's asking us to do is go in and rate these places. We give them like a star for overall performance. How long, and then there's information like how long did it take you to get loaded? How long did it take you to get unloaded? Are there any special requirements at the shipper? Like do they require straps? Or do they have overnight parking? All this stuff he wants truckers to weigh in on, because who better to know about this stuff than truckers who are there every day? So the idea is, I just pull into a place, I look it up. If it's in the database, great. I don't have to enter the address and everything. If it's not, then I've usually got the address on my shipping papers and stuff anyway. So it's really easy just to enter it, and then I enter all that kind of information in, and then he's got a little spot down there for extra comments for anything that's not covered. With just a checkpoint or whatever. It's a really great idea, and I've been trying to use it more myself. I'm still trying to get in the habit of it. It's just not my habit to go into a shipper or a receiver and, while I'm sitting there getting unloaded or whatever, to go in there and rate it, to rate the place and rate the people and the parking and all that stuff like that. But I'm trying to get used to it. So he could really use your help. He asked me to reach out to my listeners and to see if everybody would check out loadingspot.com. Like I said, again, go to your Android or wherever you get your apps, the iPhone, the App Store. Download that. It's a free download. And then just sign in with an email, a quick password. It's, like I said, super easy. So please, everybody, jump on over there to loadingspot.com. Check it out. Let's see if we can get a database put together. It seems like to me this would be a great resource, because a lot of times you might, because of your hours, you might need to park at a shipper or a receiver, and you don't know. I mean, you try to go in there, or maybe you try to call them and nobody answers. Maybe you just get the automated service. God knows how many times that's happened. I mean, wouldn't it be really handy to know if they had overnight parking before you headed in there, only to figure out, they don't? So, like I say, go check this out, loadingspot.com. Okay, now let's get into all this personal information I mentioned that's just going to keep you guys coming back and tantalized for the next episode of Trucker Dump. It'll be awesome. Okay, maybe not. But anyway, so what's up with me? Let's see. Last episode, I think I told you that the Evil Overlord had neck surgery. She did. She is recovering. I think I mentioned that back then. She's recovering nicely. Every once in a while, she just pushes it, and tweaks her neck a little bit. She'll forget she's not supposed to lift a certain amount, and she'll lift a, case of water to put it in the fridge or something, and she just forgets about stuff like that. But, she does feel good most of the time. And she's getting that feeling back in her right arm, which is great, because when she punches me, she needs all her energy. I guess one way to say how well she's feeling is she did feel good enough to take an airplane ride out to Las Vegas. Her aunt paid for her to go out there and visit, so she loaded up. She did tweak herself a little bit when she was lifting her suitcase into the back of the car. I blame her completely for that, because she shouldn't bring so much crap. God knows we had enough crap in our truck when we were teaming together. Whew, that woman brought everything. Oh, anyway, she had a good time out in Vegas. They had a good time together. It's always a little scary for me when her and her aunt get together, because I can almost feel my wallet getting lighter. They're shopping buddies extraordinaire. And she went to lots of places. She did get some clothes, which she did need for the job that she's doing with her aunt. But the thing that amazed me the most is she only spent $60 on shoes. That I consider a major victory. So what else is up? Well, the Evil Overlord isn't the only one who had surgery. Her father had surgery recently. He had a quadruple bypass surgery and a heart valve replacement at the same time. And, he was doing fine for quite a while. He got out. Of course, the major problem he was having, was that big, ugly, nasty scar on his chest. He was back at home. He was recovering. He was crabby as ever, which, means he's back to normal pretty much. But then just the other day, he had a stroke out of the middle of nowhere. Kind of surprised everybody. He made it to the doctor. All his left side was completely numb. But the good news is they did an MRI on him. It looked like the blood clot passed. Looks like there aren't any more. He is walking and talking, so that's good. He does still feel some numbness in the left side, but it seems to be coming back, and the doctors say this is one of those things that can come back fairly easily over time. So we're hoping the best for him. If you're the praying type, you hit those knees, because the Evil Overlord and her dad could both use it. So that's kind of what's up in my world. Basically, same old crap, different day for me. And basically, all hell's breaking loose back home. So what's up with you guys? Anything interesting? Anybody having any surgery I don't know about? Probably. Do I need to know about it? Not necessarily, but hey, if you want to tell me about it, bring it on. That email address is truckerdump@gmail.com. Wow, I'm known for being long-winded, but This intro must be my longest ever. 20-some minutes? Good gravy. I don't know if that'll be normal or not. It kind of just depends on what's on my mind, I guess. I guess this time it took a little bit longer because I was explaining to new listeners what was going on and the things we did here. I guess it probably won't be that long in the future. Let's hope. I don't know. Maybe you guys want a longer podcast. I don't know. Write in and tell me that. So, I guess I should get on with today's main topic. If a title like this doesn't get your attention, I just don't know what will. I bring you 4 reasons truckers don't have butts. Yes, seriously. Be sure to pay attention here. This is life-altering information. I'll have to admit that I've had some pretty lame titles over the course of the Trucker Dump podcast, but this, my friends, ain't one of them. You gotta admit that your first thought was, what the? Choose your intensity of potty word there. But now that you've had a chance to pull yourself together, I'm sure you know where this is going. But first, let's discuss butts in general, because, that's the kind of thing we do here. Butts are great. You know why? Well, for one thing, everyone's got one. I mean, there are people born without arms and legs, but even they've got butts. Some people have great butts. Heck, 70 years ago, the hilarious comedian and actor Carl Reiner liked a girl's butt so much that he wrote a poem entitled Ode to the Buttocks Bountiful. I've included a link to that if you're interested, where he reads it on the Arsenio show. Other people's butts aren't so great. My sister Angie has told me for years that I have a cracker butt. She's right, and I know it. My butt's so flat, it's almost concave. It's also appropriately white like a cracker, just as it should be. Sorry, I guess I should have issued a TMI warning there. Oh well, no taking it back now. And for the record, my sister is allowed to use the word cracker because she's a white girl. Kind of like black folks can use the N-word, but no one else can. It's funny how that rule isn't reciprocal. One of these days, that whole racist thing is going to have to work equally both ways. Well, no, that was a little tangent I didn't expect. So, anyway, the Evil Overlord agrees with my sister's assessment of my less than stellar tush. Now, she says it's a cute heart shape, but I just don't see it when I'm checking myself out in the mirror. Wait, I'm not the only guy to do that, right? Now, I know she's just being nice, which is a real stretch for someone with the word evil in her title. I don't know, though. Maybe she does like it. Why else would she smack it so hard every time I bend over to put down the shower mat? Seriously, the last time she did it, a neighbor came over to ask if we got a look at the plane that caused the sonic boom. I swear that if a CSI guy came by right then, they could get a full set of her fingerprints from the red marks she leaves. TMI again? Anyway, my butt has been non-existent as long as I can remember. Now, I had a few friends in high school who had fabulous butts. Yes, guys. I know because whoever my girlfriend at the time never failed to notice. I didn't mind, though. They're just speaking the truth. Having a flawed butt isn't great, but it's better than having a hairy butt. Even worse, a dude with a hairy, flat butt. Man, I feel sorry for you dudes the most. Or ladies, I suppose. But you know what? Even if I had been born with a fabulous derriere, I wouldn't still have it today. Why? Because I've been a trucker for 17 years. That's why. Here are 4 reasons truckers don't have butts. Pay attention here. This is life-altering stuff. Truckers freeze their butts off. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Grand Forks, North Dakota when it was colder than a slushy brain freeze. My company has a rule that the truck must be left running if the temperature is below 20 degrees. They do this to keep the fluids from gelling up and causing starting issues. Now, I had checked the weather when I went to bed and it was in the mid-20s, but I knew it'd be dipping below 20 around 4 a.m. My plan was to use the bunk heater until then, get up and start the truck, and then go back to bed. Now, I've done this countless times to save my idle time. That's because my top speed is based on idle time. Unfortunately, my Weather Channel app got it wrong this time. By the time my alarm went off, it was already 14 degrees. Well, thankfully the truck started, but just about the time I fell back asleep, what must have been the most annoying sound known to man started screaming at me. The display on the dash said I had low coolant levels, and the bright red stop engine light was on. Now, usually that means the truck is about to shut the engine down to protect itself, so I bundled up as quick as I could, hopped out, and was immediately chilled to the bone thanks to the minus 33 wind chill. Yep, you heard that right. The wind was blowing so stinking hard that the hood slammed down on me while I was checking the oil. Thankfully, those puppies are made of fiberglass and not lead. Not that it would have mattered, since I'm such a tough-as-nails, macho kind of guy. I wound up having to turn the truck in the opposite direction to keep the stinking hood open. The oil level was fine, but the antifreeze was a bit low. I filled her up, but sadly the mind-piercing alarm didn't go off. Thankfully, the truck kept running despite the stop engine light. The maintenance guy I had on the phone had me do some troubleshooting, but if I was out in that wind for more than 5 minutes at a time, I couldn't feel my fingers or toes for about 15 minutes. So basically, if I'd had a butt, it would have detached itself right there and scooted across the icy parking lot. To make a long story short, I sat in a hotel all weekend until the local international dealer opened on Monday. Now, I should have taken advantage of the downtime in the quiet hotel room to put together a podcast, but I honestly have a hard time staying off Netflix and Amazon Prime when I have free Wi-Fi. It turns out a DEF injector had gotten clogged, probably due to getting too cold. Oops. And for those of you who don't know who DEF is, that's diesel exhaust fluid. There's a link in there to a Wikipedia about it. Another time, my truck broke down on I-494 near St. Paul, Minnesota in the dead of winter. That time the motor died and I didn't have a bunk heater in the truck. Due to the nasty weather and some nastier construction, it took the tow truck 6 hours to get to me. Despite me wearing my old cowboy-style red long johns, complete with escape hatch, under my clothes and a coat, I was frozen to the core by the time I got rescued. But we don't need to have mechanical problems for truckers to freeze their butts off. We solo drivers have to fuel at least every other day. Team drivers probably do it every day. That means standing out in the cold for anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, depending on the size of your fuel tanks. It could be even longer if you have to pump DEF. What's up with those DEF pumps anyway? I could play a whole game of Monopoly before they're done pumping. Then there are the drivers who work outside. Flatbedders often have to freeze their butts off while they tarp or untarp loads. Tanker yankers usually have to walk around their trailer while they monitor the offload process. Even reefer drivers find themselves sweeping out a trailer that's been preset to freezing temperatures. Although, to be honest, this is probably welcomed in the next reason truckers don't have butts. Truckers sweat their butts off. First, let's take all those scenarios we just discussed only during the summer months. Tanker drivers are now sweat-soaked while hooking up hoses or walking around their trailers hitting it with a rubber mallet. As for the flatbedders, the Evil Overlord and I once watched a guy sweat all over his tarps as he folded and stored them in 101-degree weather. No thanks. As for fueling in the summer, you've also got the added time involved with scraping all those bug guts off your windshield. Even worse, if the truck stop doesn't have long poles on their squeegees, you find yourself with the hood up and standing over a hot engine. Good times indeed. Another reason a trucker might sweat their butt off is lack of air conditioning. Modern trucks are generally quite reliable, but still, one of the most common mechanical failures is a malfunctioning air conditioner. Last summer, I was asked to go rescue an abandoned truck from a truck stop. When I showed up, I discovered that the air conditioner was broken. The maintenance department swore they knew nothing about it. Now, since it wasn't my truck, I wasn't about to take it to an international dealer where I probably would have been sitting for 2 to 3 days. Well, it took 3 days to get back to the yard. The first night it was cool enough to sleep in the truck, but the second and third nights I had to get a hotel room, which the company gratefully paid for. After all, I was rescuing their stupid truck. Another situation where a trucker might sweat their butt off is when you're at a loading dock that doesn't allow idling. Your company is too stinking cheap to install APUs, so you're sweating like a mob boss on the witness stand, and as usual, the loader seems to be moving slower than a snail with a cane. Thanks, buddy. May all your lug nuts fall off on your way home from work. And for those of you who don't recognize the term APU, that stands for Auxiliary Power Unit. Link in the show notes. Or say you're trying to sleep in a no-idling jurisdiction, but instead you're tossing and turning in a pool of your own sweat. Or maybe you have to go sweep out your trailer after it's been cooking in the sun all day. It's like an oven filled with dirt, without the fun of mud pies. Still, truckers not having butts doesn't always have to do with the temperature. Truckers work their butts off. Truckers are allowed by law to work 70 hours in 8 days, so that's exactly what most of them do. That 70 hours includes a combination of duties like loading and unloading, vehicle inspections, fueling, and obviously, driving. How quickly your butt falls off depends on the type of work you do. Now, lazy-the-bum over-the-road van drivers like me have it easy most of the time. I rarely have to hand unload anything anymore. Knock on wood. LTL and local drivers likely aren't that lucky. Beer, soda, or local food haulers are getting out of the truck multiple times a day, each time loading heavy cases of Budweiser or chicken fried steaks onto two-wheeled dollies and into stores or restaurants. Maxing out a trucker's 14-hour legal work limit per day is fairly common with local work, too. As we mentioned before, tanker yankers usually have to be present during the unload process, and flatbedders are lugging heavy tarps up ladders and crawling around 15 feet in the air to make sure their freight is protected from the weather. And then there's the regular wear and tear of driving for 11 hours per day. Non-truckers may be thinking, "They're just driving, it's not like they're working hard." Well, let me ask you, do you get tired when you take a long car ride? Well, try doing that every day for 17 years. You're right, it's not physically hard. It's mentally hard, and neither is much fun. But you know what? Truckers don't even have to be working to lose their butts. Truckers talk your butt off. The image of the strong, silent trucker is a fallacy. We truckers love us some talking, as you can no doubt tell as you're looking at your watch right now. It doesn't take much to get us started either. Personally, I've been working on this. Now, I may have mentioned this before, but I used to talk way too much in social situations. I still don't mind hearing my own voice, but I'm much more mindful of it after the Evil Overlord so graciously told me several times that I had monopolized a conversation earlier that evening. Actually, she's not usually that nice. She's more apt to say something loving like, "You should try shutting the F up every once in a while." Who was the idiot that said truth in relationships is good? The truth is, truckers just often don't know when to shut up. The Evil Overlord and I quickly learned not to say anything to truckers sitting near us at truck stop restaurants. If you say one word to them, they take it as license to talk to you throughout your entire meal, even if we're in the middle of a conversation ourselves. Most talkative truckers that I've encountered just don't seem to comprehend when someone's trying to escape. After a while, I'll turn away from the blabbermouth like I've got somewhere to be, usually because I do. I've even taken a few steps away as he's talking. Unfortunately, this rarely prevents a determined talker from closing the distance and continuing on with whatever boring topic he's decided to enlighten you about. There have even been a few times when I've just walked away from the guy still talking. I hate to be rude, but if he can't pick up on the cues that I've got crap to do, then so be it. It's not like I'm ever going to run into Mr. Waggle-Tongue again anyway. Now, I do understand that truckers are alone most of the time and therefore feel the need to connect with people. I truly do. I would just ask that you start paying attention to how interested your target seems to be and rein it in if his eyes start to glaze over. Trust me, it can be done. At least that's what I keep telling myself. And by the way, if you didn't catch the drift, you don't have to have your butt talked off by another driver. You can also talk your butt off to another driver. You're one or the other, so either way, your butt's vanishing as we speak. So there you have it. 4 reasons truckers don't have butts. Now maybe you're thinking that you're the last living trucker to keep his or her butt intact, that somehow you managed to avoid freezing, sweating, working, or having your butt talked off. Fine, but I wouldn't get too cocky there, super trucker. I guarantee you that if you keep at this trucking thing, you'll eventually sit on your butt long enough to smash it in so much that it may as well have fallen off. If you don't believe me, just check out my pooper the next time we meet.
want this load of feedback?
You know, I hope that guy doesn't sweat his butt off every time he delivers that load of feedback to us. So, hey, the first bit of feedback we have today is from Dave. Dave wrote in last time, too, and he's actually wrote in a bunch. We're going to have to split his up. We've talked back and forth so many times, but we'll get to one of his today. It's relevant because it has to do with health, and I have recently just got back into trying to work out more than I was doing really good for a long time, and then you just lose motivation, you just lose willpower, and I just kind of dropped off the face of the earth when it comes to working out. And recently I've kind of got back into that, started back up the process. Hopefully I'll stick with it again. It's been probably, 6-8 months since I've done it. Wow. And I could tell, and actually what made me start doing it again is because my middle nephew, Jared, actually told me he could tell too. So that's pretty bad when, you give him a big hug and you squeeze him. And he says, you used to just be able to tighten your muscles and you could, suck the air right out of me. And now it doesn't look like you can still do that. Brat. Anyway, Dave writes in again. He says, great podcast, Todd. Keep posting. At first, he tells me that he's a little pissed about Trucker Dump 44. I'm not going to ruin that for you, so you can check that one out. Link in the show notes if you're interested. Or Trucker Dump 44, TD44. He goes on to say, I checked out your videos on exercise. Great ideas, driver. I've started taking my 25-pound aluminum dumbbell in the truck, but even as a single driver, I find it easier to sleep in than to get up and exercise. I'm also trying to learn to play the fiddle for a few minutes at night before bed. I use a mute on the bridge so as not to upset anyone. Remember what happened to Bugs Bunny when he tried to compete with the fat opera singer with a tuba? Well, no, Dave, I didn't remember, but I went and looked it up on YouTube because, hey, anytime you can watch Bugs Bunny, you do. There's a link to that clip if anybody's interested in watching Bugs Bunny torment someone like he always does. Anyway, Dave goes on to say, so you guys used to cook or prepare your own food? He says, I'm still listening to Archive Podcast. Yeah, he's a ways back there. He says, I would be very interested to know what you cooked and how. Recipes would be great. I'm at home in the kitchen, but I have a single bunk mid-roof ProStar, not a lot of room with a 2,000 watt inverter and a toaster oven and a slow cooker. I saw the link you put in to the slow cooker at Walmart. Got to check that one out when I have the money. Again, great podcast, Todd. Keep posting, and I love your wife. I almost forgot to mention that I use an elastic tension band, also available at Walmart, and I loop it around the headrest of the driver's seat and follow the stretches included in the instructions with a few of my own. One thing, make darn sure you stretch your arms and legs before working out. I sort of grab the upper storage shelf above the driver's seat and use my body weight to just hang there. If I don't stretch out my ligaments and muscles, I can easily pull one, making further exercise about impossible. Just a thought. Well, thanks for those thoughts, Dave. I'm glad you enjoy those workout videos. And you're right. Knowledge isn't the key. Willpower is the key. Without willpower, you just got another trucker spouting off about all his plans for life. I've heard of other drivers using those elastic bands, but I've never tried them. I started with 20-pound dumbbells and have worked my way up to 30-pounders. Unfortunately, I tweaked my wrist again, so I haven't used them in a while. Doing 30-pound curls with a bad wrist just isn't cool. That's great advice on stretching before a workout. I admit that I usually fail when it comes to warm-up of any kind. I just jump in and get it done. Perhaps that explains my tweaked wrist. And I'll have to admit that my mouth fell open when you first said you were learning to play the fiddle in the truck. I was thinking I'd set someone's truck on fire if they woke me up with fiddle playing. I'm glad to see you found a way to mute the sound. I'll put my Zippo away. After the Evil Overlord and I gained our weight, she started cooking in the truck. Nothing too elaborate. She'd just heat up frozen veggies and chicken breasts in the microwave. Now, chicken in the microwave sucks, so she eventually got a toaster oven and used that instead. I've read about drivers who cook awesome meals in the truck using crock pots and grills, but we never went that far. So I guess you'll have to look elsewhere for good recipes for the truck. Now, I can tell you how to heat up a can of soup in the microwave. That'll help. Thanks again for writing in, Dave. And we'll hear more from Dave in the next podcast, I'm sure. There's more to come. Next, let's jump up to Andrew. He wrote in with a little bit of frustration, a frustration I have felt before. Andrew was listening to Trucker Dump 57, which was called, Really? A Good Dispatcher? Great title. He goes on and says, my previous fleet manager was great, and now I have a new one on a different account with the same company, and he's a complete jerk. I wish I could throw him out in front of your truck. I believe I did offer to run over people's dispatchers for him in that podcast. Well, Andrew, I am sorry to hear you're having issues with your dispatcher. Man, that can make life miserable. Man, I used to have a great one. I just loved her, and then I lost her. She switched shifts, and they started playing musical dispatchers with me, and I was like training. It was like me training them, you know. Every single time it was somebody brand new, not, I was lucky if they had 6 months of experience. And it's just like I'm training them all over again. You know, I called my boss. I called my boss's boss and said, hey, why you keep doing that to me? I have a lot of experience. You know, I should get a better dispatcher than this. And his logic actually made sense. You know, his logic was, that is exactly our point. We need experienced drivers like you that know what you're doing to help these new dispatchers figure out the ropes. And I hate to say it, but it makes sense. You know, unfortunately, that's what we get saddled with, you know, helping the newbies. But, you know, I went through about 3 or 4 of them, and finally I got one, and he's been there for about 1.5 years, maybe 2, and he's been pretty good. I do notice that my miles has gone down since I lost my lady one that I love so much. But hey, you know what, Andrew, if I can help, you know, just bring your dispatcher out. I'll be out on I-55 in Mississippi tomorrow. I'll see what I can do about that. Let's get to 2 more to finish up. Okay, first, I promised Brian that I would not attempt an Australian accent, so I won't. I'm just horrible at accents. If you're new to the show and you haven't heard any of them, I've tried to do Irish, I've tried to do Australian, English, you know, Old English. I just really suck at pretty much all of them. Even my Austin Powers is really bad. Okay, he writes in and says, hey, Todd, I've just come across your podcast and listened to about 30 episodes in the last week or so. I'm a truckie. We say truckie, not trucker over here in Oz. It's interesting hearing the differences and similarities of the industry across continents. I have nothing in particular to say, but you seem to enjoy hearing from peeps out here. So I'll just say keep the shiny side up and stay out of my way. Well, Brian, you pegged me right. I do love hearing from listeners from anywhere, but I have to admit I get a bit giddy when it comes from someone outside the U.S. I know that's completely irrational and perhaps just a bit weird, but there you have it. It's a lot of work, and I am glad at least one person is listening, so I appreciate that. Anyway, Brian, thanks for giving me a shout, and I'll make you a deal. If you stay out of my way, I'll stay out of yours. Which shouldn't be that hard since we have an ocean between us. And Brian did write me back one more time, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. He, actually, I was trying to figure out what podcast he was listening to whenever he wrote this, but come to find out, it had nothing to do with the podcast that I had done. He rants. I'm so glad these dedicated officers are willing to sacrifice their chance of having the respect of other humans to protect our lives in the form of financial anal fisting. Why, yes, officer, I agree paying 400 clamps for punishment because I worked for 15 minutes too long one day before a 3-day break almost a month ago will of course make me a safer driver today. And it's lucky because before I started work today, I've been awake for 10 hours and I'm making an 850-kilometer run. I'm ever so fortunate that you've given me this fine and the other 2 for similar offenses in the 2 weeks prior to the current event in question. If only the different states could agree upon methods for counting of hours worked, maybe I wouldn't be paying $1,400. Taking more than a week's wage off me will certainly make me think twice before considering such rebellious behavior. And as you suggest, I'm grateful you are not taking me to court to discuss this matter. I'm just doing my job, mate. I'm just going to have to drive twice as hard for twice as long to make up for more than a week's wage that you just took from me. So thanks for making me feel safe on the roads while I go out and do some sketchy poop for a few weeks trying to make enough coin to look after my family that I hardly ever see. Thank you." And he explains, that's a rant from an Aussie truckie. If you didn't guess, it's related to an interaction with a dedicated highway patrolman. Well, Brian, we've all been there. I feel your pain, and I'm glad you got to dump a little bit. No better place to do it than the trucker dump. And to close up the feedback section today, I got an email with someone interested in doing a blog post for me. Okay, here's the deal. If anybody is interested, I do accept guest blog posts. I've had a few of them on here. It doesn't happen very often, though, and here is why. Ever since I turned this the Trucker Dump blog into a Trucker Dump podcast, well, now there's obviously text version and audio version. Here's the catch. I always require who is ever going to submit a blog post, I write them back and say, yes, I accept guest blog posts. If it's something I'm not familiar with, if it's something you have particular expertise in, great, send it in. But here's the thing. I require that you record it, yourself with your own voice and send it in so that I can put it on the podcast. And you know what? I never hear a word back from anybody. If I hear back from them at all, they just say no thanks or whatever. People have such a fear of putting their voice on tape. Well, not tape nowadays, digital. But you get the gist. People are just paranoid about it. But you know what? Like I said, I do accept guest blog posts, and I'd probably post on here more often if I actually had more contributors. So if you've ever considered podcasting or think you could do it, maybe you ought to just try it out on the Trucker Dump podcast. Write up a blog post and give it a read and see what you think about it. I will help you with the recording if you need to. I can give you some free software. I can show you where you can pick up some free software to use. You just need a decent mic. Anything but a computer. The mics on computers just suck. There's no way around that. Anything other than that. Kevin did his on a broken down Android phone that was malfunctioning on him. He sent me about 14 different small clips, and I edited them all together and did some filters and stuff because he was having some real issues with the audio quality. And it came out pretty good. Sam actually went out and bought a cheap mic. It was just a little cheap one from Best Buy, and it did just fine too. Sam Fisher did that. He's got a great English accent too. Loved having that on the show. If you're interested to hear how either of those turned out, check out Trucker Dump 87 and 88. I'll include links to those in the show notes. So hey, if you're interested in this, let me know. Write me truckerdump@gmail.com. Submit some ideas maybe if you're interested in something, you have a particular interest in the trucking industry, or you have, like I said, some particular expertise. Let me know. I'm always open to ideas. Or maybe you just have some funny stories. We always love those here on the Trucker Dump, you know that. So hey, I guess we've rambled on enough today. It's time to crank that guitar to 11. So what'd you think about today's butt episode? Write in or record yourself and send your thoughts to truckerdump@gmail.com, where there's always the comments section at abouttruckdriving.com. You can find me as Todd McKann on Twitter, but like my butt, I'm non-existent on Facebook. By the way, that's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. And if you enjoy the podcast, tell a friend or leave a review on iTunes like RiverRat57 recently did. It doesn't have to be long, short and sweet works. And you have no idea how important those ratings are to iTunes. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe. As always, I really appreciate you listening. So until next time, Brian, drive safe and stay out of my way.